Raila Odinga.
Mwaka huu tunaweka bilioni 50 kwa biashara ya hawa watu wadogo hawa. Pesa ya serikali. Ninyi mnanielewa?
Kenyan elections are always hotly contested, and the forthcoming vote on 9th August seems to be a titanic battle. President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is serving his last term, is at loggerheads with Deputy President William Ruto, who was instrumental in propelling Kenyatta to victory in 2 previous elections and is making his first bid for the top office. Instead of supporting Ruto, as he had promised previously, Kenyatta has thrown his weight behind veteran opposition leader Raila Odinga, who at age 77 is staging his 4th and likely final run. Ruto is thus pitting his populist insurgent campaign against the state machinery loyal to Kenyatta and his favored candidate Odinga, a scenario that promises to provide a stand test for Kenyan institutions. In this video, we examine why this election matters so much to the East African region. If you are new here, consider subscribing so as not to miss videos of this kind. My name is Samuel L.J. Garandi, and this is Mama Africa. First, Kenya's capital, Nairobi, is East Africa's largest city, largest commercial hub, and the home of key regional administrative centers. Its port, Mombasa, has a huge influence onto Kenya's interior landlocked neighbors, Uganda, Rwanda, Congo, and South Sudan. Its robust transport sector with the standard gauge railway and a wide road network also comes in handy to aid transportation of goods inland. This means a crisis in Kenya has to always affect business in the entire region. Kenyan elections are also the most competitive polls in East and Central Africa, with politics dominated by personalities and money rather than first or second generation children of an armed liberation movement who are reluctant to relinquish power, as in several other countries in the region. Opposition candidates may campaign more freely than those in most nearby countries, and the outcomes are usually uncertain even days before voting occurs. An entrenched culture of leadership rotation, with the presidents legally required to step down at the end of 2 terms, further sets the country apart from many in the neighborhood. But these competitive votes sometimes strain the country's institutions to the breaking point.
The violence in Kenya's Rift Valley region is spreading quite fast.
In December 2007, following a vote that international observers deemed deeply flawed, serious violence broke out when electoral authorities ruled that incumbent Mwai Kibaki had defeated opposition challenger Raila Odinga. Odinga supporters took to the streets to protest an outcome they viewed as fraudulent. During the next 8 weeks, intercommunal clashes in various parts of the country and a heavy-handed police response killed close to 1,100 people and displaced over 600,000. Long queues formed at fuel stations in the capitals of landlocked Uganda and Rwanda, which depend on supplies from the Kenyan port of Mombasa. In Uganda, the fuel shortage pushed pump prices from just around $1 to over $4 per litre, and the effect rolled over to other commodities. In the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, which also relies on imports passing through Kenya, aid agencies reported running out of stock. The crisis eased in February 2008 when Kibaki and Odinga signed a power-sharing agreement brokered by former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. Under the terms of that deal, The pair were to lead a government of national unity, with Kibaki retaining the presidency and Odinga taking the prime minister's position. The 2008 agreement and the unity government it generated paved the way for deep institutional reforms that culminated in the adoption of a new constitution in August 2010. That charter, one of the most progressive on the continent, introduced significant changes to Kenya's system of government, most importantly by cutting down the presidency's job and delegating powers and resources to locally elected leaders. It also gave Parliament the authority to vet presidential appointees and strengthened the judiciary by insulating judges from executive pressure through the formation of an independent commission responsible for appointing judges and running judicial affairs. Not all the reforms agreed on paper have borne fruit, but some have. On one hand, Parliament, which is dominated by the ruling Jubilee coalition, has hardly used its expanded powers to serve as a check on the executive and still mainly towards the government line. On the other hand, the judiciary has emerged as arguably the most important safeguard of the Constitution. It is staffed by strong independent judges with a track record of ruling against the executive branch where warranted. Indeed, in 2017, the Supreme Court annulled the results of the presidential election because the court determined it was not conducted in full conformity with the Constitution and electoral laws. Despite the emergence of a stronger judiciary and other substantial institutional changes, Kenya remains highly vulnerable to episodes of pre- and post-election violence. That is mainly due to the polarized, ethnically driven, and personalist politics that has been a feature of electoral competition in the country for decades. Amid civil war in Ethiopia and the entrenched political crisis in Sudan, the region cannot afford another surge of unrest, much less one at the center of the region's economic and political life. Fortunately, Kenya may be well positioned to dodge this bullet. Crisis group research over the past 3 years in various parts of the country has found little appetite for intercommunal violence. Society does not seem to be as on edge as it was in the months before the 2007 and 2013 elections. Divisive, ethnically laced narratives are not as prevalent as in previous electoral cycles, with a few exceptions. Although national politicians continue to attack one another with barbed comments, they have shown a welcome restraint to use hateful rhetoric as a campaign tool. In January 2022, when Meru Senator and Ruto ally Mithika Linturi made inflammatory remarks that evoked the kind of ethnic slurs politicians used during the 2007-2008 crisis, leaders across the political divide, including Odinga and Ruto, swiftly condemned his choice of words. That there is no major Kikuyu candidate in the presidential race for the first time since 1992 may also be helping tamp down tensions. Among other things, it has helped dampen public perceptions of Kikuyu dominance in Kenyan politics and Kikuyu elite control of the economy, which Kenyatta's opponents exploited to whip up grievance in previous elections. In a welcome development, rather than appealing to ethnic allegiances, Odinga and Ruto appear to be banking on bagging cross-ethnic support. Odinga by positioning himself as a mellowed father figure who could be a safe pair of hands, and Ruto by branding himself as a champion of the downtrodden. Moreover, both candidates have chosen Kikuyu running mates, making it more difficult for either to play the anti-Kikuyu card against the other. Finally, the judiciary, while far from a perfect institution, has emerged as a credible arbiter of electoral disputes. The courts have shown willingness to challenge the executive branch on its view of the Constitution by asking for a rerun of the vote in 2017 and most recently by rejecting the BBI, even in the face of an effort to intimidate judges, including through an online campaign of slander against jurists in the weeks ahead of the delivery of the BBI judgment. That the judges stood up to these implications will strengthen their hand as credible arbiters of major electoral disputes should they arise. Still, complacency would be unwise. As outlined above, few observers foresaw the large-scale violence that erupted in late 2007, although the last two elections unfolded peacefully. That result is hardly guaranteed. In our next episode of Kenya Elections Watch, we shall look at the two leading candidates, Raila Odinga and William Ruto. My name is Samuel L.J. Galandi, and for the rest of the team, we wish you love, peace, joy and blessings.
Mwaka gani? Mwaka huu.
Sijaona kule nyuma. Wangapi watahakikisha tumepigia kura ODM? Najua hapo jua tupigie Azimio, si ndio? Asante.